Hello everyone, Xale speaking. Berserker Power Scepter combined with Sword. Power Scepter after the last patch is extremely dangerous, especially with Sigil of Air, and Swordsman is the highest damage phantasm, which is why it's the preferred one in PvE. Combination of both of them give extreme burst, especially if you go glass. Enemy Mesmer didn't make any mistakes really, and 8000 damage from Scepter 3 combined with 6000 damage from the Swordman killed him. So that would be the burst. I included that video only to show you how much can it get, so let's give a counterpart video, as in I am also very vulnerable to the burst. Namely, if I've got enemy who is unblockable, or one which can catch me when I am unable to dodge or I'm stunned or something, I'm also dead. So there is that. To be able to avoid it, you need to play with two unique playstyles at the same time. As in, you need to balance defenses, sustain and damage. The problem is, all three are the same skills. There are two ways to kill a thief. One is to outburst him, it failed. The other one is to outsustain him using the phantasms. The first one was usually realized by shatter builds, the second by phantasm builds. Scepter Sword is very interesting because it combines both those playstyles. Thief approached, and although my swordsman did not hit, between scepter block and sword block I got 3 clones. So 4 seconds of distortion. This combined with guards and returned swordsman is enough to down a thief. Enemy berserker can't find me in this camp, it will be pointless. Note, if you shatter the swordsman, they will return. So you can burst enemies using Mind Rack, F1 shatter which deals damage, and get a concerted burst using the swordsman. This is why, for me, the Scepter Sword didn't work on a Mesmer, but can work on a chronomancer. So to burst, you use swordsman, shatter, and coordinate the burst. By the way, do you see the style I'm fighting against this berserker? The berserker doesn't have ranged weapons, so it's enough for me to interrupt and let swordsman execute him. However, every time enemy does something like stun, I'm very vulnerable, so if I use F3 shatter or F4 shatter, I lose my swordsman, because they can return only once. And so, this is what I meant. You play like a phantasm mesmer in terms of create swordsman. You burst with F1 shatter coordinating return swordsman damage. But your defenses and condition cleanse uses the very same shatters which are your damage and which prevent you from dealing damage. This is very visible in the fight against this particular condition chronomancer. Seeing the damage I deal him, he has to be dire. Thing is, it is impossible to cleanse all the conditions from the chronomancer. He deals a little bit of conditions, but a lot of them. Therefore I can't ever get a swordsman up, and I need to use my shatters defensively. But between blocks from scepter and sword and a swordsman, it was possible to outwear the chronomancer. If you'll watch this fight against this druid, you will see how strong is the build I'm using in close range, even between the taunt and everything, simply because Scepter Sword has 2 blocks at 900 range which creates a clone at target and deal a lot of damage. Sword Shield is a short range weapon set, more of defensive one, with a shield which mass interrupts and gives you, well, shield 4. But this druid has a lot of crowd control and most of my skills are channels. Scepter 3 channel, Swordsman 5 channel, and my only defenses are actually blocks. But this means if you put a lot of pressure on me, or stop my channels, or interrupt me, or put chill or slow on me, or simply outrange me, you should be able to kill me. So those were the basics. Now how to play this. In this fight I face 2 heavies, and as I am trying to defend the camp, I can't use distortion or stealth too much. I thought the warrior will be easier to burst than the dragon hunter, so I focused him first. But this just ended with me losing most of my offenses, half of my defenses, one badly hurt warrior but not endangered really, one somewhat hurt dragon hunter, me eating a non-crit kill shot, or so it seemed from my hit points, and overall lousy situation really. Oh well, it's time to kite. The warrior uses a ranged weapon, but dragon hunter didn't seem to. Thanks to shield 4 I am able to defend myself and then buy my time with distortion to heal. He shouldn't have followed, he simply overextended. Having better cooldowns and clones from shield 4, I was able to stomp under Wall of Precognition, but the warrior, the tankier one, was more dangerous. Now, I have just recovered, so he should have pushed me. This is actually where the phantasms shine. I simply put swordsman on him and used his terrain to not be able to be hit. So I burst the dragon hunter with sword 2 and F1 shatter, but against the tankier warrior I seek phantasms on him like assassins and bide my time to wait for a moment to strike. Also note how damaging were the blocks. If I played with pistol here, I would have died. So to be able to defeat your opponent, you need to use the terrain and get them into, well, small-scale fight in short range. So let's show a fight with a druid, a different one. Barrage or meteor shower from an elementalist, just an opportunity to take and hit enemy with sword 4. As you see, as long as we fight in short range and I am not CC'd, the druid is not in a very good position against me. Even things like entangle can be nullified by shield 4. However, the druid can disengage, so I will never win, unless I go after dolyak. By taking the fight to the dolyak, I actually created a point, a fixed point, around which enemy needs to be focused. If he stays at the dolyak gets a bubble, but I know where to place a gravity well. If he goes away from the dolyak, I will be able to kill it. So I forced an enemy to stay more or less around one area, nullifying the advantages of stealth and disengaging. It does not mean it's going to be easy though. Note that the druid fights in the worst possible terrain. And I have blocks. And between shatters and phantasms, even shield phantasms, I don't let him recover. In the end, I win thanks to the swordsman, Scepter 3, and the sword 4 block. And I got my dolyak. You know, real predators focus dolyaks over people anytime. This may not be the most representative fight of them all, but it shows the role of this weapon set in combat. You use Scepter sword to actually seek a phantasm on a squishy, think like a thief, use Scepter to deal some damage, and use shield 5 to mass interrupt, gravity well, interrupts, things you usually do as distractions. If you go glassy, your distractions will kill people. Don't go frontline, because crowd control and because chill will kill you. And if you are focused, you are killed. We were spawn camped, and in this place it was impossible to properly show it, because stirs, the captain obstructed type of opponent. But you do have defenses and you do have damage. If you are not focused and if you focus someone, that person is probably dead. This clip is, I think, one of my first ones, so I'm doing everything wrong. Like I should approach with Scepter, not with sword. But anyway, this clip has some use. So I'm trying to hold enemy group before Gw2 comes and not run out of defenses too fast. Enemy group is clearly not coordinated, but they are very numerous, which means that even the stray fire can kill me easily. When Gw2 appeared on his Reaper, I have decided to charge at them using my shield, so I get most of the fire to give Gw2 time to enter and massacre them as well as he does. In this part of the video you can see the woeful uselessness of my build if I need to approach opponents and they outrange me. I can only hide behind the wall, sorry Gw2. Now what I did here was very risky. The warrior using rifle followed me and changed to greatsword. I engaged him one-on-one because if they run out of ranged opponents we will be able to wreak havoc, but I assumed that Gw2 will be able to hold his ground or to, escape. Or that the warrior is less tanky than he actually was. It ended with my clutch stomp which got Gw2 up, but in hindsight it was a bad move on my part. So we were lucky in this particular area. However, as you see, this shows the weakness of my build. If I'm focused, I'm useless. To Condy cleanse, I need to either heal or, worse, to destroy the phantasms which deal damage. So at this point, I think you see what a Scepter sword in terms of power weapon is. It's something between a phantasm and a burst build, that is between sustained and burst firepower, which has some defenses but will crumble under fire of several opponents, and which is extremely vulnerable to control conditions, and range, and burst. But it can pack a lot of punch, it can cause distractions, and if you load the defensive utilities, and of course use the terrain properly, it can live better and longer than it seems. I die a lot on this one. But it's also very pleasant to play simply because it's high risk, high reward again. And because I need to shift stances all the time, as in what I'm going to do. If you fight in 5 versus 5, however, in organized groups, I would not recommend you load this particular build, especially not in Berserker. It's a single target assassin weapon set, while Greatsword is a area weapon set. Now this fight is actually interesting, because even if I lost, I could have won. This fight shows elegantly how I use Scepter sword as an offense weapon set, and when I'm under too heavy focus, I swap to sword shield. With shield, I'm trying to interrupt my opponents and create alacrity phantasms, so my utility defenses recharge. With Scepter sword, I try to go for a kill. And this beautiful dance is occasionally stopped by opponent traps. How dare they use crowd control? Don't they know I want to win? Between timing Well of Precognition and Blink and Decoy, I'm able to survive quite a long time against two opponents. If they had one burst class, or anyone with chill, I would have died here and then, because all my defensive timings would go off. See, most of the fight Druid had less hit points than a Herald, but I didn't notice. Even downing the Herald won't help me because I can't stomp, so I decided to interrupt. Interrupt Res with dazing. But I got controlled by the trap. This is another thing this build won't do. It cannot stomp. And the weapon sets are so specialized, if you are stuck on the wrong one in wrong moment, you are useless. And you will probably die, but that's aside the point. So, thank you for watching, Uxal is out, hope you had fun.